Oh crap, are we live? I don't know. I don't know if we're. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're live. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to b.hive Productions Horror Hump Days, where I spend every Wednesday reading you either a chapter or a short horror story from some of my writing. And currently, right now, we're going through the Sleepwalker Saga, which is from this book here, Sleepwalker. And let's see. It's basically about a couple of guys, a couple of very good friends that go hunting. And they go hunting on some sacred land. It's called Wendigo Woods. And they fall through, one of them falls through a thin spot in reality. And they end up in a kind of a horrible nightmare. Or he ends up in a horrible nightmare over and over and over again. And every reality is a different chapter in the book. And so that's where we're at. Good evening, Shannon. Welcome. Welcome, Stephanie and Beth. Can't wait for this next chapter. Oh, good. Good. Yeah, so this week's chapter is called The Wendigo, Part 1. Our hero. Oh, look at Bobby here. He's ready with his teddy bear. Is Beth your teddy bear? So anyhow, where was I? Yes. So yeah, he's going to encounter the Wendigo in this one. Happy scary night. That's right, Kev. Welcome, buddy. I'll try to scare you the best I can. So this book, the Sleepwalker series, came about because of a dream I had while I was hunting. I was up in my deer stand. We got out there early, of course, because my hunting buddy Jim is early riser and wants to get out there right away. And so I had time to nap. And while I napped, I had this dream that I kept waking up. And I would go about my day, and then there'd be something off about what was going on in my dream, like either people didn't have faces or hey Jessica, welcome, or McDonald's would be pronounced McRonald's or something like that. Something would be different, and then as soon as I figured that out, then I would wake up again, and I'd be waking up in a different reality, and it was kind of exhausting. And that's kind of how this book came about. So anyhow, tonight we are going to talk about the Wendigo. And the Wendigo is an actual legend. It's a Native American legend, mostly around Minnesota in the Great Lakes area and up through Canada. And I did look up actually some information about the Wendigo on a website. And I put a link on here for you guys to check it out too, if you guys like to. The name of the website is called Legends of America. And I'm just going to read you a little bit of, I'm just going to read you what they got on here. This article is titled Wendigo, Flesh Eater of the Forests. The Wendigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation. Its desiccated skin pulled tautly over its bones, with its bones pushing out against its skin. Its complexion, the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into their sockets. The Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody. Its body was unclean and suffering from suppurations of the flesh, giving off a strange and eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption. And that is from Basil Johnston, an Ojibwe teacher and scholar from Ontario, Canada. In Minnesota's North Woods, the forests of the Great Lake region and the central regions of Canada are said to live a malevolent being called a Wendigo. This creature may appear as a monster with some human characteristics, or as a spirit who has possessed a human being and made them monstrous. It is historically associated with cannibalism, murder, insatiable greed, and cultural taboos against such behaviors. Known by several names, Wendigo, Witigo, and Witigo, which roughly translates to the evil spirit that devours mankind. This creature has long been known amongst the Ojibwe, the Eastern Cree, the Saulteaux, the West Main Swampy Cree, the Naskapi, and the Innu peoples. They have described them as giants, many times larger than human beings, although descriptions can vary somewhat. Common to all these cultures is the view that the Wendigo is a malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural being strongly associated with winter, the north, coldness, famine, and starvation. The Algonquin legend describes the creature as a giant with a heart of ice. Sometimes it is thought to be entirely made of ice. Its body is skeletal and deformed, with missing lips and toes. The Ojibwa describe it as, it was a large creature, as tall as a tree, with a lipless mouth and jagged teeth. Its breath was a strange hiss. Its footprints full of blood, and it ate any man, woman, or child who ventured into its territory. And those were the lucky ones. Sometimes the Wendigo chose to possess a person instead, and then the luckless individual became a Wendigo himself, hunting down those he had once loved and feasting upon their flesh. According to the legends, a Wendigo is created whenever a human resorts to cannibalism to survive. In the past, this occurred more often when Indians and settlers found themselves stranded in the bitter snows and ice of the North Woods. Sometimes stranded for days, survivors might have felt compelled to cannibalize the dead to survive. Other versions of the legend cite that a Wendigo might also possess humans, who display extreme greed, gluttony, and excess. Thus, the myth served as a method of encouraging cooperation and moderation. Native American versions of the creature spoke of a gigantic spirit over 15 feet tall that had once been human, but had been transformed into a creature by magic. Though the descriptions of the creature vary slightly, the Wendigo is generally said to have glowing eyes, long yellowed fangs, terrible claws, and overly long tongues. Sometimes they are described as having sallow, yellowish skin, and other times they are covered with matted hair. The creature is said to have several skills and powers, including stealth, is a near-perfect hunter, knows and uses every inch of its territory, and can control the weather through dark magic. They are also portrayed as simultaneously gluttonous and emaciated from starvation. Wendigos are said to be cursed to wander the land, eternally seeking to fulfill their voracious appetite for human flesh. And if there is nothing left to eat, it starves to death. The legend lends its name to the disputed modern medical term Wendigo psychosis. Some psychiatrists consider it a syndrome that creates an intense craving for human flesh and a fear of becoming a cannibal. Ironically, this psychosis occurs in people living around the Great Lakes of Canada and the United States. Wendigo psychosis usually develops in the winter in individuals isolated by heavy snow for long periods. The initial symptoms are poor appetite, nausea, and vomiting. Subsequently, the individual develops a delusion of being transformed into a Wendigo monster. People who have Wendigo psychosis increasingly see others around them as being edible. At the same time, they have an exaggerated fear of becoming cannibals. The most common response when a person showed signs of Wendigo psychosis was a curing attempt by traditional native healers. In past cases, if these attempts failed and the possessed person began to threaten those around them or to act violently or antisocially, they were executed. There have been reports regarding this psychosis dating back hundreds of years. A 1661 Jesuit relations document stated, "What caused us greater concern was the intelligence that met us upon entering the lake, namely, that the men deputed by our conductor to summon the nations to the North Sea and assigning them a rendezvous, where they were to await our coming, had met their death the previous winter in a very strange manner. These poor men, according to the report given us, were seized with an ailment unknown to us, but not very unusual among the people we were seeking. They are afflicted with neither lunacy, hypochondria, nor frenzy, but have a combination of all these species of disease, which affects their imaginations and causes them a more than canine hunger. This makes them so ravenous for human flesh that they pounce upon women, children, and even upon other men, like veritable werewolves, and devour them voraciously, without being able to appease or glut their appetite, ever seeking fresh prey, and the more greedily, the more they eat. This ailment attacked our deputies, and, as death is the sole remedy among those simple people for checking such acts of murder, they were slain in order to stay the course of their madness." Another documented case occurred in 1878 when a Plains Cree trapper from Alberta named Swift Runner suffered one of the worst cases. Swift Runner was a trader with the Hudson Bay Company, who was married and the father of 6 children. In 1875, he served as a guide for the Northwest Mounted Police. During the winter of 1878 and 79, Swift Runner and his family were starving, along with numerous other Cree families. His eldest son was the first to die of starvation, and at some point, Swift Runner succumbed to Wendigo psychosis. Though emergency food supplies were available at Hudson Bay Company Post, some 25 miles away, he did not attempt to travel there. Instead, he killed the remaining members of his family and consumed them. He eventually confessed and was executed by authorities at Fort Saskatchewan. A Wendigo allegedly made several appearances near Roseau in northern Minnesota from the late 1800s to the 1920s. Each time it was reported, an unexpected death followed, and finally it was seen no more. Another well-known case involving Wendigo psychosis was that of Jack Fiddler, an Ojibwe Cree chief and medicine man known for his powers at defeating Wendigos. Fiddler claimed to have defeated 14 Wendigos during his lifetime. Some of these creatures were said to have been sent by enemy shamans, and others were members of his band who had been taken with the insatiable, incurable desire to eat human flesh. In the latter case, family members usually asked Fiddler to kill a very sick loved one before they turned Wendigo. Fiddler's brother, Peter Flett, was killed after turning Wendigo when the food ran out on a trading expedition. Hudson's Bay Company traders, the Cree, and missionaries knew the Wendigo legend, though they often explained it as a mental illness or superstition. Regardless, several incidents of people turning Wendigo and eating human flesh are documented in the company's records. In 1907, the Canadian authorities arrested Fiddler and his brother Joseph for murder. Jack committed suicide, but Joseph was tried and sentenced to life in prison. He ultimately was granted a pardon but died 3 days later in jail before receiving the news of his pardon. Among the Assiniboine, the Cree, and the Ojibwe, a satirical ceremonial dance, is sometimes performed during famine to reinforce the seriousness of the Wendigo taboo. The frequency of Wendigo psychosis cases decreased sharply in the 20th century as the Native Americans came into greater and greater contact with Western ideologies. However, Wendigo creature sightings are still reported to this day, especially in northern Ontario, near the cave of the Wendigo, and around Kenora, where traders have allegedly spotted it, trackers and trappers for decades. Many still believe that the Wendigo roams the woods and the prairies of northern Minnesota and Canada. Many have given Kenora, Ontario, Canada, the title of Wendigo capital of the world. Sightings of the creature in this area have continued well into the new millennium. And there you go. So, happiness. Happiness. That is me when I talk smack to the old lady. Yes, some wild things, huh? So that's what happens when I delve into these things. So, anyhow, that's the legend of the Wendigo, and now that we know about it, let's dive in and see how BroadMeadow. All right, here we go. Let's see. Where the hell did I put it? It's right here. The Wendigo, Part 1. Bo's eyes snapped open. What the fuck was that? He said loudly, hoping his friend would hear him from across the valley. The mewling scream came again, and this time echoed across the valley. Jeff had to have heard that, he thought. He could hear tree trunks snap and splinter, and then crash to the forest floor. He pulls out his phone and pulls up Jeff's number. Are you hearing this? He texts his friend, and watches as the screen just projects a revolving circle, and eventually says, message not sent. He looks at the top of his screen, and there is no service. Fucking Velocity Wireless, he curses. Jeff! He screams to his friend. Can you hear that? Before he gets any answer, the thing that is shambling around in that fog lets out another ear-splitting screech, and this time follows up with what sounds like a chuckle. The fuck is that? Bo says, swinging his 308 towards the fog. Every year, Jeff always bought Bo a gift, either for an early Christmas gift or a late birthday. Bo always felt bad because he never thought to get his friend something. One year it was a thick blaze orange camo jacket. He still wore it today. It was faded and a little ragged, and probably didn't do much in the blaze orange department, but he still wore it every year hence. Another year, Jeff had grown tobacco and rolled him an entire carton of cigs, which Bo only smoked on hunting trips with Jeff until a few years back when he caught and survived from lung cancer. Last year, Jeff bought him a new scope for his rifle. It was a special military-grade rifle scope with night vision. Am I missing out on all these little comments over here? Oh, Wendigo Rottweilers. Well, they'll eat each other, not humans, hopefully, right? Okay. He positioned the scope to his eye, and he searched the valley for the source of screeching. But he could see nothing. Everything out there, according to the scope, was cold. No heat signature, no warmth, only the coldness of the frosty winter air. Jeff! He hollered again, and then tried to find his friend in the scope. He made sure to keep the trigger clear. He didn't want to accidentally shoot his friend. Fuck, Jeff, are you okay? He couldn't see any other choice than to make his way across the valley. Carefully, he stepped through the bramble and fog. He was almost to the middle when something ran past him. A couple somethings. Deer? He thought. Wouldn't that be ironic right now? He kept calling to his friend hopelessly. The fog was disorientating. He didn't know which direction he was facing and what was behind him. Then he heard what he thought was Jeff. It was a man coughing. And maybe not coughing, but gurgling, perhaps? In either case, he aimed his scope up in that direction, but still didn't see a heat signature. Another screech came, and this time it sounded close. He thought his eardrums would burst this time. He fired off a round into the air to give whatever it was a warning shot, hoping to scare it away. But somewhere, deep down, he knew nothing was going to scare this thing away. Again, after the long, drawn-out screech, came a deep, chuckling noise that what sounded like a horse puffing air out of its nose. Jesus Christ, Jeff! Where the fuck are you? He put his finger over the trigger and made his way forward, ready to shoot at the source of the screeching. He felt the ground rise, and he realized he had come to what he hoped was Jeff's side of the valley. Jeff? He said a little quieter, but panicked. Hey, brother, are you okay? Where are you? After trampling around until he could get his head above the fog line, he made out what he thought was a blaze orange Elmer Fudd hunting cap. He approached slowly and saw that it was Jeff, but he was slouched over a fallen log. Jesus! Jeff! He said, running over to his friend. Jeff was lying on his stomach, motionless. His skin was cold to the touch, but Bo could make out a slight pulse. Oh, thank God! You're still alive! He turned Jeff over onto his back. But before Bo could check him over, he heard that mewling sound again, and this time it was directly behind him. A chill shivered his bones, and the hair on his neck stood up. Turning around, he saw what he thought was a giant man wearing thick, bare fur pants. But he could see that they weren't pants at all, but actual fur growing from its legs. A large, barbed penis stood erect from its crotch area, and then a dirty but chiseled torso was above that. You know what this is, he heard himself thinking. Why are you looking at it? You know what happens when you look at it. It's the Wendigo. That's right. It's the Wendigo. It eats the flesh of men. And what happens when you gaze into its eyes? You crave the flesh of men. Its chuckle came from deep within its broad, hair-covered chest. Why are you staring, or why are you trying to gaze into its eyes? I can't help. Jeff sat straight up, his eyes in an empty, cloudy stare. He had gazed at the Wendigo. He hungered for the flesh. Fuck! Bo yelped. Jeff, stop! But Jeff didn't stop. Jeff was still in military shape at 52, while Bo had grown soft and fat, just a shade of the man he once was. The 308 went off, echoing through the valley. Bo thought he heard the bullet make its purchase on the flesh of the Wendigo. Jeff's teeth snapped and clicked at Bo's throat. They were wrestling near the edge of the berm that fell into the valley. Bo had let go of the rifle in order to stop his friend from chewing a chunk of flesh from his body. Please, Jeff, he pleaded. Get a grip, man. Just snap out of it. It's me. It's your friend Bo. But Jeff kept trying to snap at his face. They ended up rolling over and down into the valley floor. Bo stopped rolling when they hit the muddy ground, and Jeff rolled several feet from him. Bo pulled his .45 from its holster and aimed it at his friend while he tried to stand up. Don't make me do this, he said. I don't want to shoot you. Send the Badgers, right, Chuck? Jeff got back on his own feet and hissed and mewed like the Wendigo that had sauntered off somewhere to shake off its gunshot wound. Jeff charged him, and Bo struck him in the temple with the butt of his pistol. Blood ran down the side of his face, and he fell forward. Fuck, Jeff! I'm so sorry! Jeff writhed in pain for a bit, and then tried to get back up. Bo struck him again, and he went down and stayed there for a bit. Bo used this opportunity to run. He ran back into the fog and hoped to reach the truck. Running seemed fruitless, like in a dream. The ground was a heavy, thick muck, like glue sucking onto his boots. He felt like he was getting nowhere, and somewhere behind him he could hear Jeff coming after him. But it seemed like the more he tried to run, the less ground he was gaining. There was no sound from the Wendigo, and eventually the ground got harder, and he felt his footfalls getting higher. He had reached his side of the valley. All those years of smoking and then losing half of his lung to cancer had taken their toll. He was breathless. His heart beat heavy in his chest while the remainder of his lungs wheezed weakly, trying to draw in fresh air. He felt like he may piss himself at any moment. He heard his friend growl and grunt as he made his way closer to him. Fuck! 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 Bo marched up the embankment on fumes and stumbled briskly towards the truck. He then realized the doors were locked, and Jeff had the keys. He breathlessly got to the back of the truck and opened the topper and pulled himself into the bed of the truck. He slammed the hatch of the topper closed and used a bungee cord on the handle and stretched it back and hooked it to the other end with into a bracket on the topper so Jeff couldn't open the back. Bo laid there trying to get his breath back. He reached into the pocket of his coveralls and brought out his inhaler and took a weak breath from it. He closed his eyes while he felt the medicine light upon the bronchus of his leftover lungs. Jeff was pounding madly on the fiberglass topper, sounding like he would break through at any moment. Bo felt his bladder give way, and he urinated himself. A tear fell from the corner of his eye. He took one more puff from his inhaler, and he felt the Symbicort open his airways, and he could draw in a fresh breath. Fuck, Jeff, he yelled to his friend. Stop it, please! Just get a hold of yourself! Jeff only answered in snarls and grunts, bashing at the fiberglass that was the only barrier between the two. Bo could smell the sour smell of urine, and his skin began to freeze where the wetness had stained his pants and long underwear. He pulled out his .45 and clicked on the laser pointer. A shaky red dot danced around the inside of the back of the truck and then steadied on his friend's face. Jeff's skin was gray and was almost lost in the fog around them. His eyes were cloudy and murky, with no life in them. His lips were pulled back, showing his teeth that were gleaming with saliva that hung in strings from the tip of his teeth to his chin. Jesus, man! Let's go find a bear to chew on. I don't want to shoot you! Another barrage of pounding from Jeff's fists and head, and then the clear fiberglass window snapped and fell in large, jagged pieces. Bo fired off a round to warn his friend. The sound echoed in his head, and his ears began to ring in the enclosed space. Fuck! He clasped his ears as everything around him was muffled by the high, ringing sound. Jeff pulled his way into the bed of the truck, and Bo fired off 2 more rounds into his friend's shoulders. Jeff screeched at him and pulled himself even further into the truck bed. Fuck! Bo repeated and shot another few shots into Jeff's face. Jeff's cheekbone shattered and hung off in ragged chunks from his skin. His teeth, now seeing more of them, snapped at the food before him. Jeff got his legs into the cab and was on Bo so fast he barely was able to get the muzzle of his pistol into Jeff's mouth and pull the trigger. There was a muffled pop, and Jeff's brain exited in gobbets behind him, and his body slumped on Bo's. "Oh, Jesus fucking Christ! No!" Bo cried out. He cradled his friend's head to his chest, not believing that he had just ended his best friend's life. He couldn't tell how long he laid there. The tears kept coming and the sobs were deep. Snot began to freeze along the trail of tears on his face. Then he heard the howl of the Wendigo. It was far off, but it was getting closer. Perhaps it was running. He didn't know, but he could hear trees crashing closer and closer to the parking area. "Fuck!" he repeated. Bo rolled his friend on his back and then searched Jeff's pockets for the keys. He began to panic as he could feel the keys but couldn't quite reach them. Eventually his hands found purchase and he leapt out the back and unlocked the driver's side door and jumped in. He turned the key and awaited the globe plug to go out. As the diesel engine chugged itself to life and the turbos began to whistle, the Wendigo howled again in anger, and this time right behind him. Thanks, Chuck. He punched it into first gear, and the dual rear tires rooster-tailed gravel into the air, hitting the Wendigo in the face. Second gear, and the demonic creature slashed out at the truck and rocked the back end to the side, and the tires barked as they hit the ground again. By third gear, he was on the township road, and the Wendigo was far behind him. You like these suspenders, Chuck? They keep my pants up better than the belt did. My belt had to contend with my belly, you know? His tears were blinding him. He couldn't afford to slow down because the Wendigo was closing up behind him. "How long is this son of a bitch gonna follow me?" he wondered to himself. But each time he looked in the side view mirror, there it was, murderous intent in its glowing eyes, screeching at him through the curves and bumps of the rustic road. It wasn't until he was on Highway 6 that he lost sight of it. He thought he would run into town and stop at Will's hotel. He and Becca would understand and know what to do. "Hunting accident?" he thought. "Is that how we'll explain it? Jesus, I plugged Jeff about 9 times with my pistol. Who's going to believe that?" They sure as hell aren't going to believe the Wendigo story. The fog was thick when he pulled into town. He couldn't see past the hood of Jeff's truck. He only found Will's hotel by the giant lit-up statue of Bigfoot that stands in the front lot of the hotel. The sight of it made him sad, as the statue was something Jeff had welded together as a gift to Will. It was supposed to be daytime, but with the fog it seemed like early evening. The parking lot was empty, but that was to be expected as most guests were hunters. Becca would be busy in the kitchen about now, making her famous chili for the hunters when they came back. Will would be walking the grounds or sitting at the front desk. He pulled in front of the office, which was attached to their home. He went in and there was no one at the front desk. He thought that odd, as there would usually be at least one of their employees manning the front desk if they weren't around. Bo also noticed there was no smell of cooking. Usually the lobby was overwhelmed with the scent of cooking chili. He tapped the small bell on the desk, and it rang strangely in the damp air. "Will?" Bo shouted out. "Willie!" Willie was Will and Becca's one and only son, who usually liked to help with hotel stuff in his 8-year-old capacity, but there was no answer. Suddenly, from somewhere outside, a familiar mewling sounded that brought sharp, cold chills up Bo's spine. "The Wendigo!" he thought horribly. In town? Oh, fuck me. He walked over to the office window and stared into the thick fog. The mewling was getting closer and closer. He unholstered his .45 and ducked beneath the window. He could hear shuffling outside, like shoe leather scraping the gravel lot. He slowly raised himself to peek out the window. There, surrounding Jeff's truck, were some of the townspeople, with the same mewling noises coming from their group. Oh, fuck, he whispered to himself. And that's when the door that opened to Will's house creaked ajar. Becca came out, her eyes cloudy and dead like Jeff's. Her lips pulled back in a hungry grin as black goo ran from her mouth. She let out an ear-splitting screech, and Bo let loose a shot into her throat. Becca fell back and tried to get up again. Willie crawled over his mother and loudly mewled at Bo. Bo stood up and ran into the common area of the lobby that stood between the Stevensons' house and the hotel. There was a hot tub, a couple tables, a TV, a microwave, and popcorn machine. Also, there was a sauna and a bathroom shower area that locked from the inside. He ran into the bathroom and latched it shut. Willie was joined by others, slamming their fists on the metal door. He sat on the shower bench with his gun in front of him. He had hoped the deadbolt would hold until he figured out how to get out of here or help would come. There were plenty of armed people in this area that had hopefully not been turned into cannibalistic maniacs by the Wendigo. He sat there crying, thinking about all the good times he had had with his friend Jeff growing up, and the kindness of the Stevenson family. Now, Jeff lay dead in the back of his own pickup truck, and Becca with a bullet hole in her throat. He was sobbing, exhausted and in shock. His mind raced, trying to think of what to do next, but his body betrayed him as it began to lose the adrenaline he was using. Eventually, his mind blocked out the sound of the pounding. He shut his eyes, remembering once again the tales the elders had told him on the reservation. Wendigos travel between those thin spaces, cursed with eternal hunger for human flesh. If any man, woman, or child should be cursed enough to look into those dead eyes of the Wendigo, why they begin to crave the human flesh as well. Thin spaces. There are many pockets in this world that have doorways in these thin spaces, doors to other planes of existence, where things are the same, but slightly different. Sometimes things slip into our world, and sometimes we slip into theirs. And that, my friends, is the end of Chapter 2, or Wendigo, Part 1. So, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Bo is going to be slipping into a new reality next week in Chapter 3, and that one is called Pandemic. So, anyhow, I want to thank you guys very much for joining me tonight. We've got we're going to have Tunes on Tuesday again next week. I haven't picked out an artist yet for that one yet. I was kind of scanning through. And then, of course, we'll go into Horror Humpdays with chapter 3. So, holy hell. Great chapter. Can't wait for the next. I'm glad you guys liked that one. Good. I'm glad you guys liked it. Yeah, the book meant a lot to me because it means a lot to me. It's basically about friendship, and I got to put them through a lot of horrible things just to prove their friendship to each other. But yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it. He goes through quite a few nightmarish realities before he can find home. So, but anyhow, we'll be jumping back into the Sleepwalker Saga again next week at this time and on this day. What else do we got coming up? I think that's pretty much it. We're just doing the tunes on Tuesday and the horror hump days for now. I am still shopping around for some software so we can get back to doing what's buzzing at the Hive and can do some interviews. I really want to interview my daughter. She just finished rewriting her first book, and it's a pretty incredible story. She did a very good job. I'm very proud of her, and I can't wait for you guys to meet her and talk about her book. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. So so just I gotta shop around for streaming software where I can do that, where I can do remote streaming with people. And well, you're gonna have to wait until next week, Bobby Paulson. Anyway, he's such an impatient guy. Yeah, so there's that. Something I wanted to say last week, and I kind of got distracted from it, but I've noticed there are a lot of commercials out there and ads on Facebook talking about how if you pay $300 some odd, they'll help you publish a book on Amazon. Another ad is these people saying that they can make you quick money by having AI write a book for you, and they're selling, oh yeah, you can sell these for $10 a day, and they're selling by the thousands. Those are lies. Amazon does not charge you to publish a book. You pay for the author pays for the publishing cost. So if you were to order a book, then it would cost, I think it's like $10-11 to publish one book is what the costs are for this one, my latest one. And then the rest is all goes to me. So I get the royalties after that. So I priced mine a little high because it's a 2.5-pound book and shipping is expensive. So yeah, so I priced it a little high in order to pay off that. So I think in the end I make probably about $2-3 per book off of that. So anyhow, speaking of which, if you guys are interested in getting a signed copy, just message me, and I'll order some up. I'm already ordering some for some other friends that have asked for a signed copy. So if you're interested, let me know, and I will, because the ones I have are already spoken for. So, yeah, there's that. Anyhow, yeah, so I just wanted you guys to be aware, if you guys are interested in writing and publishing a book, just be really wary of people that charge you to do it. Self-publishing has become more popular now with the internet and stuff making things easier. It's really hard to break into the big time publishers. It's kind of a who you know type of thing. Or if you have a really good agent, but there are a lot of scam agents out there as well that will make you pay them to be your agent, and that's not how that works either, because an agent makes their money selling your book, and then they get a portion of that. So yeah, so I just noticed a lot of that stuff coming out. I don't know if it has to do with the algorithm or whatever. I've called out a few of these companies that say this, and I told them they're fake or they're a scam because nobody charges to publish on Amazon, and you don't make a lot of money making AI books because you have to market it yourself, and that's the toughest thing about self-publishing is marketing your own books. And so I just try to market just by coming on here and reading my stories to you guys, and getting you guys to share the word, spread the word, or whatever about the books. But again, I'm not into the writing gig to make a shit ton of money. I'm just in it to tell stories. So, which is why I pretty much offer my stories free to you guys by reading them to you. So, anyhow, so that's what's going on with that. So there, I said it, and yeah, I I tell you guys every week that I am very thankful for you coming on here and listening to my stories and giving me feedback, commenting, sharing. Also, you people that come to watch and you don't say anything or you don't comment or like anything or whatever, but you're still there, you're present. Um, like it's because of you guys always coming back, or you guys participating, or you guys even just showing up. Is the reason why I keep doing this every week. It's fun to read to you. It's fun to research some of the stuff on the stories that I write, and the same thing goes for Tunes for Tuesday. With music, it's different. I have a very low self esteem when it comes to my talent or lack of when it comes to playing music, and even though I'm still learning some of these songs and I'm performing for you guys, it's still fun to play. It's like sitting at a party with you guys and me whipping out the guitar. So, yeah. So it's a heartfelt thank you to you guys, all of you guys, for coming along with me on this little project of mine and tuning in every week. It's like getting a visit with you guys without having to travel too far. And this winter it'll be nice because no matter what it's doing out there, we're still right here and it's fairly warm in the house, unless somebody turns down the thermostat. And yeah, if my dad was around, nobody would be touching the thermostat. That's all I'm saying. So anyhow, I love you guys very much. And I also want to thank you guys for not getting political on here with your comments or whatever. Like I said before last week, there's places to be political and talk about your politics. And the b.hive is not a place for that. This is just a place for stories and badly played music and some fun. And I love you guys no matter which way you guys sit, whether you're red, white, or blue, I'm happy to have you here at the b.hive, and I always will be. Everybody's welcome. So, that being said, you guys have an awesome week. We'll talk to you guys next week. Maybe see you on Coffee with Friends. I'm going to be in Aberdeen this weekend to celebrate my oldest granddaughter's 3rd birthday. So, yeah, so I'm pretty happy about that. So, I might be doing Coffee with Friends from Super 8 in Aberdeen. So, anyhow. All right. I love you guys. Peace out. Mwah. And boom. There you go, Kev. There's your clappity claps. So, have a groovy night, you guys. I'm out. I'm going to eat me some biscuits and gravy. Mm-hmm.